Welcome back. I am D.L. White, Atlanta-based author of romantic fiction featuring Black men and women. And this is the Bookcast. This is my podcast where we're reading short fiction and my new release, The Never List by D.L. White. This book was released on September 25th, so it's pretty much still a new release. The early reception has been great. I am so excited that people are loving Trey and Esme as I love them, and I'm really hoping that the Bookcast is showing you so much of their personality and their quirks and how they get along. So we're entering about the last third of the book, and so things are starting to get a little hot and heavy, and so if you thought it was spicy before, things are about to get a little more spicy. So just letting you know, if you listen around your children, your mother-in-law, your great-grandma Edith might want to put on those headphones. Probably not this chapter, but coming up soon. I'm just letting you know they're about to get down and dirty eventually. So let's begin. Hey, as a reminder, you can purchase this book online if you don't want to listen to it at booksbydlwhite.com/books. It's available in ebook and now paperback at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and bookshop.org. You can also request this title at your local library because it's now on overdrive. Woo! So I certainly appreciate all of your patronage and all of your loyalty and all of your love. I absolutely love that you love this book. So let's begin. Chapter 23, Esme. Trey's body ran like clockwork, so he said. His circadian rhythms were set to 5 a.m., so no matter what time he went to sleep, that was when his eyes opened. My body clock was not in alignment with his. After a luxurious and eventful shower the evening before and a mutual body oil rub-down, Trey lent me a t-shirt from his collection, and I passed out. When he got out of bed to get on the bike before the sun was even up, it woke me up. I rolled over to watch the muscles in his back move through the white sleeveless tank he wore before I drifted back to sleep. He woke me up again after he finished. Come on now. You can't go to work in my t-shirt. He had a point, so I got up and searched for my clothes. Now I yawned as I packed my bag and slipped my shoes on. Sorry about this whole walk of shame thing you gotta do. Sorry? For what? Bringing me dinner and wearing my ass out? Trey folded his arms across his broad chest as he leaned against the counter behind him. He'd showered and stepped into a pair of briefs to walk me to the door. If I didn't have to go to work, I'd drag him back to the bedroom by the bulge that was taunting me. Since you put it that way, I don't have anything to be sorry for. I'm actually quite proud. Besides, I'm a grown woman, I added. There's no shame in having several orgasms, returning the favor, then passing out. I looped an arm around his neck when he pulled me close, giving me an extra squeeze and a kiss at the door. I'll see you later this morning. I hope your client feels agreeable today. I'll try to prime him before you get there. Should I bring coffee? He shook his head. Let me. You go home and get ready. He kissed me again, then opened the door and gently pushed me out to the hallway with the tips of his fingers. If you don't leave, I'm going to convince you to play hooky so we can repeat last night. Go. I frowned because that sounded like an excellent idea, but I turned and walked toward the elevator. When I didn't hear his door close, I peeked over my shoulder to find Trey lingering in the hallway, his head tilted down. I could guess that his eyes were on the generous roundness of my ass. I turned the corner, then pressed the button for the elevator. Since I was moving against traffic, the drive home was pleasant. When I pulled up to the house and saw lights on, I knew that O'Neill was home, and all of that talk about being unashamed to go home in the daylight in the clothes I wore last night stuck in my throat. I entered through the kitchen and hung my key on its hook. O'Neill leaned against the counter in a sleeveless t-shirt and plaid lounge pants with one of my mother's gigantic stoneware bowls balanced in his palm, likely full of cereal. Look who just walked in this door at... He leaned over to check the time. 7:30 in the morning? Looking smug and satisfied, too. O'Neill spooned a mouthful of cereal and spoke while crunching Cheerios. I cannot wait to hear this shit. Where have you been, Esme? I set my bag down on the seat next to him, then headed straight for the coffee grinder. I should really ignore you because it's none of your business. I will troll the shit out of you. Don't try me, Esme. Where the hell you been? I was with Trey, all right? I poured beans into the grinder, then ground them and tapped out a few tablespoons of ground coffee. I turned the stove on under the kettle to boil water for the French press, then turned to face him. We worked late. I stayed over. When did you get home? About midnight. They delayed my flight in Istanbul, so we didn't get in till late. Then I went out with the crew, so when I got home and you weren't here, I pulled up the Find My Friends app. Somebody's fast ass was in Midtown. When you still weren't home this morning, I checked the app again, saw that you were coming this way. What are you doing up if you just got home? O'Neill would typically have a day off after a long trip. I got a call to cover a flight. I'll take the hours. Stop stalling and tell me what's up. There's nothing up. Seriously, we are just hanging out. All night. At his place in Midtown. O'Neill tipped his head to the side. Y'all fucking? No, we are not fucking. Y'all doing everything but fucking? That I couldn't lie about. O'Neill knew me too well, and I couldn't hide the truth if I tried. I don't even know why I asked. Actually, y'all doing something. It's all over your face. I thought you didn't want anything to do with him. I know what I'm doing, O'Neill. Do you, Es? Explain it to me. O'Neill, you told me to get with him. I told you to fuck him. I don't want you to get into a drawn-out entanglement, get your heart dragged behind some nigga taken from you like he's your man, but calling it hanging out. We're too old for that shit, Esme. That's not what's happening, O'Neill. A whistle from the kettle interrupted. I turned the knob on the stove to remove the heat, then poured the boiling water into the press and put the lid on the carafe. You said you know what you're doing, so explain it. So I explained it while I waited for my coffee to brew. The remnants of Honey Nut Cheerios grew soggy in the puddle of milk at the bottom of O'Neill's cereal bowl. If anybody was watching you, they'd assume you were already sleeping with him. May as well go on and do it. I know, but between us, we want to say we didn't and not have to lie. You like him, then? I mean, you must, rolling in here the morning after. Yes, I like him. I don't know about a forever kind of thing, but he's definitely getting this first round. Is he asking you to risk your job for him, Es? No, I shot back, vehemently shaking my head. He would prefer that I didn't. He's dead set against it. But you're gonna do it anyway. I poured myself a cup of coffee, added cream and Splenda, and stirred. I avoided O'Neill's gaze because I knew what his reaction would be. Esme, I know, but you know how it's been at Benning. It wouldn't be a terrible thing to never have to face Ethan again. It would be so much easier if Miller would be an upstanding guy here. He could provide updated financials, and I wouldn't even have to consider going behind his back. Trey could make an intelligent, informed decision instead of walking into the situation blind. He's not even the man you're paid to care about. The thing is that the man I'm paid to care about may not be worth caring about. And the man I do care about is worth getting fired to protect. I shrugged, picking up my coffee mug, and headed toward the stairs. I need to get ready for work and head down there. What time is your flight? Almost noon, he answered. He got up to empty his bowl, but turned before I got out of earshot. Make sure he thinks you're worth protecting. And start logging into WhatsApp and updating us. I'm tired of asking your sisters what's going on with you. I'm tired of providing entertainment for y'all. These are not the awkward adventures of Esme Whitaker anymore. This could be real and potentially something very good for me. And y'all are too nosy. O'Neill fake sniffled as I walked away. My little Esme is all growed up. Inside my bag, my work phone buzzed. I pulled it out, expecting a cute note from Trey about how much he already missed me, or that he was looking forward to seeing me today, or asking what flavor of coffee I wanted from Brew Bar. Instead, it was a message from Reese, Ethan's executive assistant. Report to Benning this morning before going to Miller Design. Ethan needs to speak with you. Please acknowledge receipt and report ETA. Fuck. I sat in a guest chair in front of Ethan's desk and set my bag near my feet. My nerves were so shot that my body vibrated. I tried crossing one leg over the other to appear super casual, My right leg trembled so violently that I opted to sit up straight, both feet flat. I dressed to impress, at least, in an olive green scoop neck dress that clung in the best places and draped over others, with Weitzman suede pumps dyed to match. I was no longer dressing only to impress myself. I knew somebody that would look and would enjoy getting an eyeful of thigh visible through the deep side split. The thought of Trey ramped my nerves up even more. What if Ethan was pulling me from the project? What if he was planning to replace me with someone who didn't give a damn? The door to Ethan's office opened and he rushed in, sliding his laptop and a stack of files on his desk. "Esme," he said in greeting. "Thanks for coming in." "You say thanks as if you gave me a choice." "It surprised me to receive a summons to the office today. Is there anything to be concerned about?" Ethan situated himself at his desk and arranged it the way he liked it, laptop to his right, files and notes to his left, stacked so that they were only organized to him. His desk was otherwise bare, but he kept a few utensils and a cup on the credenza behind him, between framed photos of his family. At least, I assumed the people in the photos were his family. He hadn't swapped them out in the entire time I'd been working for him. "Always with the smart-ass comments, Esme." He scowled, punching keys on his laptop while he spoke. "I received a concerning phone call from Thomas Miller this morning. Pettigrew is pushing hard on a few terms of the contract, and he's unsatisfied with the progress. He doesn't feel like you have his back in this negotiation." My jaw dropped open. Was Miller throwing me under the bus? "I want an update, and I don't want to hear the party line that everything is on schedule. What's happening out there, Esme?" "Well, I have to disagree with Miller. At every turn, my conversations with Mr. Pettigrew have led with Miller's needs in mind. I've been clear that there are reasonable concessions to be made on both sides, but Mr. Miller does want to come to terms. He will not give away his company. Mr. Pettigrew understands that. Then what's the problem?" Ethan was more of a menacing, low talker, not a brash man, but today his tone was sharp. "This should have been open and shut. Nothing to fuck up, just process the contract. Easy work. That's why I gave it to you. Now, Miller tells me that you and Mr. Pettigrew seem friendly, that you often spend time together away from the office. That little room that Miller gave us to work in is a hole. So, yes, we take our meetings off-site, where I plead Miller's case and get Pettigrew to come forward. And when I return to the office, I bring something that Miller can agree to. You told me to get this job done. I'm trying to do that." "Mm-hmm. I bet you are." My eyes narrowed. What does that mean?" "Miller suspects something is going on between you and Pettigrew. Frankly, I don't care if he gets the contract signed. Pettigrew is pushing to involve legal and asking for financial statements that he doesn't need. If you're close to him, find a way to get him to sign. This deal has to go through, Esme. Fuck him if you have to, but wrap this up, whatever it takes, or it's your ass. Am I understood?" I wanted to laugh. I wanted to cock my head back and scream in laughter. Did my boss just suggest that I do what I've been trying not to do? I was being set out like a sacrificial lamb. Whatever it took to get Miller Design sold, Ethan would do it. After the transaction was processed, Ethan would have a reason to fire me. I swallowed my seething, roiling anger, grabbed the straps of my bag, and stood. "Understood," I bit out, then walked out of his office. I hustled to my car, got in, and sped away. I had to talk to Trey, and not at Miller Design. Chapter 24. Trey. A phone call broke through a monotone, modern rap hit with bass that thumped so hard I felt it through the steering wheel. It was too young for me, but I was too lazy to look for a new station. The dashboard display read Esme Whitaker. I'd just picked up our coffee and was headed to Miller Design. She would either have news to share, maybe she had worked miracles to bring him around, or she'd be calling to tell me how much she was looking forward to seeing me. "You miss me, huh?" I called out as I picked up the line. "Trey, it's Esme." I hadn't known her long, but I knew when someone's voice held an unusual edge. "I know." That's why I said, "Anyway, what's going on? Are you at Miller already?" "No, and I don't think you should go there either. We need to meet." "I'm at Brew Bar, on my way to Vinings. I really need to talk to you before you go out there, Trey, and I won't be there. Can you meet me at Pettigrew?" Um, sure. Yeah. I was confused, but I didn't think Esme would redirect me without reason. Park in the lot and wait at the front desk. I'm on my way. I'm already here. I redirected to the southbound lanes headed toward Pettigrew. I parked in my spot between Pops and Vincent, then rushed inside the 3-story, bright yellow group of buildings overshadowed by the Pettigrew construction sign. Esme was waiting in guest seating. The sight of her shapely body in a dress and heels, hair and bouncy curls, and her stern, concentrated stare into the atmosphere made my heart leap. I'd kissed her goodbye a few hours ago, but damn, it was good to see her. I called out to her, catching her attention. She hopped up, picking up her bag. I laid a hand on her shoulder and dipped my head to catch her gaze. Hey, what's going on? Why are you here? I'm fine. I didn't mean to make you worry. I have a lot on my mind. Can you take me to your office? I need to speak to you in private. I signed her in and escorted her to the executive suite, then into my office. I refused to take over Pop's office mostly because I believed in my heart that he would be back. His assistant guarded his space like a German shepherd. I also hated his furniture and had become accustomed to my office suite and my view. I handed her the coffee that I'd picked up for her, which had stayed impressively warm, but she didn't seem to notice, taking large gulps from the cup. I sat on a corner of my desk and waited until she was ready to talk. Thanks for this, she said, holding the cup in both hands. So, I got called into Benning this morning. Ethan tore into me about the progress on the contract. Miller had called him, pissed because he felt like he was being pressured to sign the contract early, that you were pushing him to sell his company for less than he wanted to take for it, and that he felt like you and I were working together against him. We kind of are, but I'm not trying to tank this deal. I did email him this morning to request updated financials. I said my team wanted to take one last look at the numbers before it heads to legal. Well, that started a shitstorm. Ethan said something about you demanding financials that you don't need. Miller told Ethan that he thinks there's something going on between us and used it to encourage me to do what I had to do to get you to agree to his terms. His exact words were, "Fuck him if you have to." Oh, I felt my brows hit my hairline. That's not okay. Yeah. And not that the thought didn't cross my mind, or mine, but that's what we've been trying to avoid, yes? The appearance of impropriety? Anyway, the cat's out of the bag where you and I are concerned. We apparently don't hide our affection for each other well. She couldn't help but smile. Neither could I. I didn't care if Miller knew that I had feelings for his contracts administrator. Those feelings in no way affected my mission to acquire Miller Design. But it feels like Ethan is setting a trap to fire me. No matter what happens with this deal, I'm on the chopping block. Miller is pushing him, so he's pushing me, and I figure there must be a reason that he doesn't want you to see actual numbers. We agree there. But that means that I'm going to lose my job anyway, she said, her brown eyes wide and brows raised. And if they don't fire me, I'm going to quit. At the very least, I won't have to work for a man who tells me to fuck a guy to push a deal through. She paused, pushed out a harsh breath, and continued. So, I ran the reports that I needed to run while I'm still employed, that you need to be able to close this deal. I hung my head, slowly releasing a loud, hissing breath. I really didn't want you to do that, Esme. I know, Trey, because it means risking my job, but my job is already at risk. I may as well go down in flames. It's the right thing to do. Besides, it's not illegal. It's not that I can't, or that they've forbidden me to. I hadn't, because those reports were all provided to me. I took them at face value. Did Saul ever run his own Dun & Bradstreet report? D&B was like Experian or TransUnion, a credit reporting agency, but for business. Like consumer credit agencies measured my worthiness to open a credit account or take on a loan, D&B measured and monitored the same for a commercial entity. That report would answer every concern an acquiring a company might have. By the time I came on board, they were signing papers. When I took over, Miller revamped the contract and raised his purchase price. Like you said, we received a portfolio of documents from Miller's accounting firm. The report was in there. I don't honestly think he ran a single report. That's interesting because it's one of the first steps in setting up a customer profile at Benning, but I wasn't directed to do so. Esme handed me her coffee cup, then turned to pull some folders and her computer from her bag. She flipped open the folder, revealing a neat stack of pages and notes clipped inside. This is the D&B report that Miller provided to Saul and Benning. As you can see, there are a few blips, but it's relatively clean. It's also quite aged, not current at all. This looks standard for a 10-year-old company as reports go. She opened her laptop, then pulled up a report. Take a look at this report that I pulled an hour ago when I was sitting in the car. A delinquency score measures how likely a business will be to have severely late payments. It goes from 101 to 670, with 670 being the highest. That's like having a perfect credit score. Miller scores 209, which means they probably pay some bills on time, but for the most part, they're frequently more than 90 days late on more than one account. That means Miller is hiding some debt somewhere then? Probably, she confirmed with a slow nod. If he had the money, he'd pay the bills. Firms in this position struggle to keep the lights on and make payroll, pay taxes, and keep benefits current, then hope for the best with everything else. He might get a large down payment on a job and make a balloon payment to bring him current, but then he'll fall behind for the next 4 months while the job is progressing, then catch up when the final payment hits the bank. He might pay installments on a loan for drafting equipment, but he'll be late on software renewal or let the machinery almost be repossessed before they'll make payment. Can you forward that to me? I stood, walking around my desk and picking up my desk phone. I need Vincent to see it. Sure. I'm sending some other reports to you from our platform, but they'll confirm what the Dun & Bradstreet report says. Miller Design is failing. It'll go under without a buyer. Unbelievable. Unfucking-believable. It was the only word that Vincent had been able to utter since I'd called him into my office, laid out the entire situation with Miller, and showed him the reports that I pulled off of the printers, and introduced him to Esme, who was in the process of saving our asses. He stared at the printouts, flipping page after page, his head moving back and forth and muttering the same word over and over. I swiveled in my chair, having long since shed my jacket and tie. Esme and Vincent were in the guest chairs in front of my desk. Esme looked exhausted, but also at peace, for someone that took a huge risk for us and was on the verge of unemployment. It wasn't the outcome that I wanted, but I could not have been prouder of her. What does this mean for us, then? Vincent asked, finally looking up from the printouts, directing his question at Esme. What should we do? Your current contract with Miller, the one he's pushing Trey to sign anyway, stipulates that Pettigrew assumes ownership of all assets. In this case, we're mainly talking about equipment needed to run the business. Now, that makes sense, considering you're both in the business of design. He's likely leasing the equipment, which means you'd have to assume payment. I don't know much about drafting and architecture, but I don't think Miller would be using old and outdated machines. We're talking state-of-the-art, cutting edge, so he's in for a large sum. We took a tour when we began negotiations, said Vincent. He's got a nice shop over there, brand new, updated, shiny. That's what we liked about them. Esme nodded, showing that she understood. Given that and his delinquency score, he's probably more than 180 days behind on loans on those machines. He might be hoping that a big payday gives him enough money to cover that debt and bring him current, and then they become your problem, your bill to pay. The question, Vincent, I interrupted, sitting forward, is if Miller is still a good target. He's got no room to play. We know the real deal, so if we still want this company, we can probably get it for a steal. Call that off as a Pettigrew satellite and swallow it up. Something to think about for sure, but son. His gaze landed on me, and I knew what he was going to say. I averted my own eyes, so I didn't have to watch him say it. It's time you talked to Saul. I know you don't want to, and had hoped to avoid it, but he needs to know what's happening. If we kill this acquisition, he will not be pleased. I want him to understand why. When I told Esme that the only thing I was really afraid of was Pops, I meant it. It wasn't a physical fear, but an emotional one. I didn't want to tell him that I'd failed to do what he specifically set out for me to do. Begrudgingly, I nodded, embraced. This was going to be a tough conversation. Esme had offered to come with me, as had Vincent, but I declined both offers. I had to do this to stand on my own 2 feet. Pops made me responsible, and as the man in charge, standing in for the man in charge, This was my task. That didn't make the task any easier. Neither did walking into my parents' house to see my sister sitting at the kitchen island watching my mother cook. Trey! My mother called out, a bright smile breaking out across her face. I bent toward her so that she could drop the customary kiss on my cheek. So nice to see you on a weeknight. Should I set a place for you for dinner? No, thanks, Mom. I'm actually here to talk business with Pop. It's important. Her joyous expression dissipated, replaced by a frown and a furrowed brow. He put you in charge for a reason, to make these decisions with Vincent. Now you rush home to discuss everything with him, get him all worked up, and then I'm the one that has to live with him. Whatever it is, deal with it on your own. Don't involve him. Can't really do that this time. It's bigger than me, and at the end of the day, it's his company. But I do appreciate his health, and I'll try to keep him calm. Where is he? She sucked her teeth and shook her head, but pointed in the general direction of a corner office. In his study. I turned to leave, but another voice stopped me. Hello, little brother. Nice to see you. Thanks for acknowledging me. Love you too. I suppressed a sigh, turning to face her. Hello, Missy. Sorry, I'm busy. Mm-hmm. Her lips formed a surly frown. You always think your shit is more important than anyone else's. Are you serious right now, Missy? I'm actually working. I'm here to see my boss. I don't have time to cater to you. Fuck you, Trey, she spit from across the room. No, fuck you, Melissa. Trey. My mother's sharp tone cut off whatever Missy had planned to say in response. That's enough. You two do nothing but fight like cats and dogs, and I'm done with it. Trey, go talk to your father. I left the room, escaping the heavy blanket of tension. Missy and I hadn't had a good conversation in a very long time. I recognized that, much like my approach with Esme, I wielded certain personality characteristics like weapons. However, they didn't always serve me well. Once this mess with Miller was over, I vowed to make that therapy appointment that I'd been meaning to tell myself to make. I turned into the study, rapping my knuckles on the open door. Pops lounged on a dark chocolate leather couch, feet up on an ottoman, the TV blaring Sports Center. A loud burst of laughter ripped from his throat as he pointed at the television. That Stephen A. Smith is a fool. I tune in to watch him stick his foot in his mouth. Pops reached for the remote, muting the sound. Hey, son, didn't expect to see you. You saw your sister? I had to fight to not roll my eyes. That wouldn't go over well with Pops. Yeah, we spoke. You spoke? He chuckled. Sounds like you picked a fight. Pops, I actually had something I needed to talk to you about. Can I pull up? He gestured toward the couch, but I opted for the chair opposite him, made of the same leather. Uneasy, I lowered myself into it, exhaling a long breath. Sounds heavy, Pops commented. What's going on? Well, what's going on is that, I'm not sure the acquisition is going to move forward. I watched his expression change, growing darker. He was seething inside, obviously holding back. Miller hasn't been forthcoming with the financial status of his company. Today, we ran the reports that I think we should have run on our own to protect our name and reputation, and it's a good thing we did. The outlook is not good. I'm not surprised. He was trying pretty hard to get me to buy his company. What are you getting at? He cooks his books? I don't know that his books are cooked, so much as the numbers that he provided to you at the beginning of this process are no longer current. He's deeply in debt, likely pretty far behind with no hope of catching up without an infusion of cash. But his stance during negotiation is... I shrugged, puzzled even as I said the words. Pops, he acts like his business has an A rating and that it's worth millions. It's just not. He likely owes far more than he brings in. Like I said, son, what the hell do you think an acquisition is about? It's taking the best and leaving the rest. That's what I told you to do. I understand that, Pops. But the deal that you drew up with Miller is different from the deal he's presented me with. The new deal says we take everything, income, liabilities, expenditures, debt. Pops paused. How much debt? Not sure yet. We need actuals, and no one answers the phone at the accounting firm he says represents him. A line of confusion formed across his forehead. How do you know he's in debt if you don't have updated numbers? And now I had to come clean about the entire ordeal with Miller. How, when I'd rescued Esme from being mugged, it threw a wrench into the process and changed the game. How, when she was introduced into the equation, it became more about getting Miller to bend my way than to close the acquisition. How, after getting to know Esme and feeling the spark of something real and meaningful for her, I dreamt up a plan to get Miller to agree to my terms. And when I expressed a concern about the project, she had offered to run the reports. How, despite not wanting her to risk her job, she had done so and revealed important information that I wouldn't have known until the papers were signed, and that she was likely now unemployed over her decision to help me. Pops quietly fumed, breathing deeply and evenly as he listened. His jaw was tight, and his eyes cut at me at various points of the story. But he waited for me to finish, sit back against the soft leather, and await his response. Just to be clear, he began. I asked you to close the loop on a deal that should have been cut and dry. That's all I asked you to do, correct? Yeah, Pops, but that was a yes or no question, he said, his index finger in the air. That's what I asked you to do, right? Just to be clear. Yeah, I sighed, dejected. Yes, Pops, that's what you asked. And then you decided to do your own thing and fucked it up. The last 3 words roared at a decibel that I hadn't heard since before Pop's heart attack, and frankly, it scared the shit out of me. Pops stood, so I stood too. He had a few pounds on me, and we weren't quite eye to eye, but I stood my ground. I asked you to do one thing, Trey, one thing, for the future of this company. You come to me with your hat in your hand about how you fucked it up, running after a woman? Am I supposed to be impressed? Am I supposed to be proud? My mother appeared in the doorway. Her jaw was set and her lips curled. I raised my hands in surrender. I told him what was going on, and Trey, why don't you go ahead and go? My mother waved a hand toward me, gesturing me out of the room. Let him calm down. Call tomorrow or something. Mom, I can't just leave when things get uncomfortable. We have decisions to make. No, I have decisions to make, Pops roared, moving toward me. Vincent has decisions to make. You have no more decisions to make, Trey. You want to run your own division, but you couldn't complete this simple transaction, and now we have no chance at that bid. He waved his hand in my face and turned away. Trey, just go. Pops, I get it, you're pissed, but we need to. He turned on a heel and ended up back in my face. Get out, he bellowed. Missy snaked around my mother, flew into the room and grabbed my arm. Let's go, Trey, she muttered under her breath, pulling me out of the door. Give it a rest. Stunned, I allowed myself to be escorted out, straight through the house to the front door. Behind us, I heard my mother talking to him, using calm, soothing tones. By the time we made it to the front door, I had regained clear thought and yanked my arm from her grasp. Why did you pull me out of there? I still need to talk. You need to go home. Or to work. You need to let him think. You need to let him calm down. He can't make rational decisions in a heightened state. Ask me how I know. I glared at Missy, but where I expected animosity, there was exhaustion and a knowing expression. Finally, I nodded and reached for the door handle. Fine. I guess I'll go wait for my punishment. Trey. Missy's voice stopped me yet again. You did the right thing. He doesn't see it yet, but give it time. An eyebrow rose. She smirked. I'm nosy. So is Mom. We listened at the door. She lifted her shoulders in a shrug. I'm always jealous of how Pops has so much faith in you. He took you into the business and showed you the ropes and let you run his company while he was out. You can do what I can't, and no matter what he feels right now, I know he's proud of you. And I know we don't get along, but I'm proud of you too. She frowned then. Not that you care. Missy, don't say that. I care. It's just that No, it's fine, Trey. I honestly don't need well-meaning platitudes, and I don't expect much more than I get from you. You're a dick, she said, adding a laugh that I knew she didn't mean, but it helped to lighten the mood. But in a little brother way, and you're the only person real enough to be a dick to me. You're never fake nice to me. Everyone puts on kid gloves like they're afraid I'm going to grab a knife and go at them. I'm not an axe murderer. I almost laughed. Then I actually did laugh because Missy burst into laughter. I guess I'm glad you can laugh about it. Gotta find joy somewhere, right? Right. So I glanced around, noticing her Mini Cooper parked on the street in front of the house. I'd been so focused on talking to Pops that I hadn't noticed. What are you doing out here anyway? I thought you had, therapy. Missy shook her head slowly, sucking her teeth while leaning against the door jamb. I live a whole life that you know nothing about, Trey. I got a job, actually. Mom was making dinner to celebrate. Part-time, but it's work. My jaw dropped. What? For real? She grinned, nodding. She seemed proud. The grifter got a job. Now I felt even more like shit. Missy, whatever, it's fine. The place where I used to go to therapy needs someone to answer the phone and direct people. I can do that. My therapist recommended me after he transferred me to another therapist. Transferred you. I folded my arms over my chest, suddenly protective, responding to a flare of emotion on her behalf. I remembered that the therapist at Brownwood moved her from therapy to therapy, doctor to doctor. What's that about? Oh, it's just a better therapist, a whole new routine and different meds and intensive treatment and weekly sessions. So far it's working. When Pops had his heart attack, I got really, really scared. It must have changed something for me. It's sticking so far, so I'm gonna ride the wave. Good, I replied. Really good for you. Stick with it if it's working. If you need anything, you have my number. I know you have it because you send me to voicemail when I call you to come help me with this yard. She chuckled. You might regret telling me to call you. Let me worry about that. I hugged her, probably for the first time in double-digit years. Love you. I'm headed back to the office to see if Vincent has any ideas on what to do next. Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Bookcast. I had intended to read a whole other chapter, but it's a long one, and so unfortunately, you're going to have to wait until the next episode to pick that one up. I'm sorry, but it's just really good, and I don't want to rush through it, and I don't want to make this episode too much longer. It'll just give you a little whetting of your appetite for the next chapter. So until next time, remember you can buy this book at booksbydalewhite.com/books or request it at your local library or buy it in paperback at bookshop.org, amazon.com, or Barnes & Noble. Always hit my website for the, I was about to say the lyrics, definitely not the lyrics, the links, or any of my social media posts because, as you know, I never shut up about this book. So take care of yourself, and we'll talk to you next time.